Hi, everyone. I'm Tim Carter, Shenandoah County Sheriff. Glad you could be with us here today. I've got a special guest with me, Sheriff Lenny Millholland from Frederick County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Millholland was first elected in 2016, Frederick County Sheriff, and prior to that, I think he was the Winchester City Sheriff for 3 terms. And Lenny and I have been around law enforcement for a long time. He's a mentor of mine, a friend of mine, and I'm so happy to have him on this morning. We're going to talk a little bit about police reform and local impacts in Shenandoah and Frederick County. So thanks for being with us, Sheriff Millholland.
Sheriff, thanks a lot for inviting me. What we're going through in 2021 is important to all sheriffs, all law enforcement personnel, and the citizens that we deal with every day.
I agree. I think if you want to talk a little bit, let's talk a little bit about the local impacts of the most current Virginia legislative session and the previous special session. I know in Shenandoah County, we're asking our board to support a full-time accreditation manager, a full-time training officer, and a full-time body camera data information technology manager. So I think the first thing I want to talk a little bit about is accreditation specifically. And what do you see is the importance of a county sheriff's office being accredited relative to police reform and potential funding and just the services that you all provide?
Well, for what it's worth, we belong right now to VALEPSI, which is Virginia Law Enforcement Professional Standards Commission. And, it's made up of police departments and sheriff's offices across the Commonwealth, along with the state police. And, I have a full-time accreditation manager. And, there's about 190 different standards that have to be followed. And it requires about 580 files that have proof that you do all of these different standards. Mm-hmm. And, what it does, it just keeps an efficient law enforcement agency intact, right, with guidelines and policies, whether they're use of force, whether they're pursuit, whether they're, just every day how to operate. These are standards that, we adhere to and have to, because every 4 years we get reaccredited, and they send a group, a team up to go over all your standards. They ride with you. They go on calls with you just to see how you handle day to day.
Right. I know we're going into that. I think it's our fourth iteration of being accredited, and I tell people it gives the public, it gives the sheriff's office, it should give the county administration a peace of mind that we are doing all the right things. We are making sure that we're in compliance with all the policies and the laws that are out there that affect and impact law enforcement.
Well, that's true. I mean, we want to have, the citizen confidence. We want, the citizens of Frederick County and also the citizens across the Commonwealth to know that, this is what we strive and try to do every day.
Right.
And, I think that we've become a little bit more successful in doing it. But the question is, how long will it take for the other smaller agencies? Because it's not cheap.
Right.
You always have to have 1 or 2 people every day, and that's all they do is, do these files and gather information and, make sure that your departmental policies and procedures, whether the use of force procedures, everything fits the Department of Criminal Justice list of the way that, these policies need to be done and adhered to.
Right.
I mean, you can have policy, but if you don't abide by your own policy, then, you're kind of stuck.
Right. And I had a conversation with John Jones, the executive director of the Virginia Sheriff's Association, and he and I both believe that future funding is going to be tied to accreditation, and we do get a considerable amount of funding from the state and the federal government.
Well, if you look at the bills that were passed in Richmond, and I'm going by the one that was on September the 9th, 2020, where it talked about the bills that had passed, they want to eliminate increased law enforcement funding if the agency fails to obtain accreditation.
Right.
So if that happens, there's about 340 law enforcement agencies across the Commonwealth, which makes up it's probably more than 23,000 sworn police officers. But, that's what we have in the Commonwealth.
Right.
And, that, if you do the math, that's about 293 police officers or law enforcement personnel per 100,000 residents. And that's a lot of people for a small amount of law enforcement officers.
Right.
But, every day, I don't know how many square miles Shenandoah County has, but I've got 415 square miles, and on average, I got anywhere from 12 to 14 people that are working per shift. So, you take all that and you take, you're responsible for their actions 24/7.
Right. Well, it is it's part of police reform, and I think it's critical to the citizens that we serve. Let's move on a little bit to technology. In Shenandoah County, we've been fortunate to have body cameras or field camera systems for our deputy sheriffs for a number of years now. And I tell you, Sheriff, the issue that we're having is maintaining these systems and the management of the data. We've asked for a position from our Board of Supervisors. Right now, they're supporting it. But I think that having this technology, from our position, it's critical to officer safety, and it's critical to transparency for the public once you get these cases into the judicial system. Do you guys have any kind of those systems there in Frederick County Sheriff's Office?
When I first became sheriff back in 2016, I went to the county administrator and I said, hey, here's this grant, which is a body-worn camera grant that we got from the Department of Justice. And we sided with the Winchester Police Department, I think the Winchester Sheriff's Office, and we all got body-worn cameras on the grant. So, it was a couple $100,000, and I had, 140 body-worn cameras that my personnel were required to wear. I mean, when you talk about accreditation, that's part of the accreditation as to whether or not, you have body-worn cameras, whether you use them, how you use them. When you exit the vehicle, anytime you have any sort of interaction with the public, they have to be on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, in the beginning, some of my personnel were kind of like, well, Sheriff, I don't know about this. But after, we've had them, right now we're probably into the 5th year because we just redid them with newer models. And, my people now have understood that on more than one occasion, what somebody has said has kind of backfired, because we'll go back and review the body cam and we'll call the person and we'll say, hey, come on in here, because what you're saying and what really happened are two different things. And we want to refresh your memory, but come here and take a look at it.
Right.
But with that, Sheriff, I've got a woman who's a clerical person, and that's all she does all day long is take, I've got 150 people. So she takes that body-worn camera, download information, and she puts it on a disc for the Commonwealth attorney or for, prosecuting attorney, defense attorneys, or whoever might want that information. So.
Right. Well, I think it's part of the trends that we're seeing out there. It improves accountability of law enforcement agencies. I tell you, we started the program here. We had a young deputy. He was in the town of Woodstock, and he was involved in an officer shooting. And fortunately for us, at the time, the town of Woodstock was actually field testing body cameras. And that was extremely helpful to have a picture of exactly what happened for our Commonwealth's attorney. And, of course, the case was investigated by an outside agency, the Virginia State Police. So my point is as these organizations or agencies are looking into the actions of the officer, having the body-worn camera was critical to make sure that the public had trust that the officer did exactly what the officer was trained to do and should have done. And everything in that particular case with regard to the camera was, very helpful to the organization, us as the sheriff's office.
Yeah, more often than not, you will find that camera helps you with just the way that your people treat the public and act.
Right.
It's kind of like the old saying that, having a lock on your door just keeps honest people honest. But, our personnel know that, we at any time can go back and look at that video. But, I would like to think that, my people know how they're supposed to treat people. So the only concern would be in the event that, you would have a shoot situation or a situation where you have to use force, that someone would doubt the way that it happened, and you'd have to go back and review it just to make sure that, your people did the right thing.
Right.
So, but with that, there's a really big cost to the tax-paying citizens because, you have to have cloud storage, you have to have, equipment to download, you have to have boxes that once you plug them in, it goes, into the cloud and gets stored in the cloud and is documented in the cloud. And,
right.
It's an everyday affair in order to keep everything straight for when it goes to court a year from now and you have to pull it back out of the cloud and you've got the disc and you take it into court. And, a lot of times, Sheriff, when you have body cam footage of a situation, you show it to the defense and it kind of ends at that point. It's like, hey, this is what we got. And, you probably ought to go ahead and plead because if they drop that, body worn camera information before a jury or before a judge, it's really not going to look good.
Right.
So, and, that helps in that instance also.
Right.
But it's, there's so much technology out there that if you had an unlimited budget, you probably could have the best agency in the country. Just something as simple as a taser. Tasers have decreased a whole lot of use of force injuries, a whole lot of use of force on people because, it's a taser and it basically renders you in a position where, you're easier to handcuff at that point.
Right.
So,
right. Well, Sheriff, I'm with you.
Cost
I'm with you. Sheriff, let's move on to training a little bit. I know Shenandoah County is part of a regional training academy, as is Frederick County Sheriff's Office. At one point we were in the same training academy. We tried to get moved up to your all's academy, and it just didn't work out for us. But
right.
The standards and the criteria that we train to and meet with each new recruit, as well as throughout the deputy's career, is all mandated by the Commonwealth of Virginia's Department of Criminal Justice Services. What do you see some of the impacts of enhanced training and police reform and how it would relate to your office? I know, like, for example, we've been going through a process over the last month and a half because of all the changes with the search warrant process, making sure staff understand the new law. I mean, we've been doing that internally just because it's happening right in front of us, and it needs to be done so that we make sure that we're doing all the right things with regard to the new legislation. Do you have any thoughts on training and police reform?
Well, as you said, we have to follow the mandate of DCJS. So I don't know how long when you went to school. I've been playing this game for about 43 years. So, when I first started, I went for 12 weeks. And now they're up to 20. So within that 20 weeks, you've increased all your use of force, your weaponry, your pursuit driving, how you deal with public, your crisis intervention training, everything that DCJS says will make you a better police officer and make you more acceptable with the public. So, these, and then, we've got to go back every 2 years and get 40 hours of retraining. And if you have somebody that's on the comp board as a master deputy, they have to have that additional 40 hours of training in order for them to be comp board certified master deputy. So,
Right.
It takes a whole lot of time and money to train our people, but we try any school that we have, that has like a train the trainer, we'll, send our personnel there, whether it's, like I said, crisis intervention. We hold classes at our agency several times a year just to get our people, up to an acceptable level to handle different crises that, you have some people with mental issues and stuff, that these CIT trained people, can go out and try to de-escalate the aggression. So everything we do, like you, everything we do is what will better promote our public and the treatment of the public.
Right. And I tell you, Sheriff, even just as a side note, I'm not sure if you guys have experienced this in Frederick County, but of course we have the state mandates, but we've also got these. There's a local ordinance on, or a local resolution on Second Amendment support. There's a local resolution on supporting Black lives, and in both of those resolutions, there's a training component there. It's not only a policy and component, but there's actually a training component. And so we not only have the mandates out of the state, but now we're having local ordinances or local resolutions that also head us in that same direction. I'm not sure if you guys had any of that or not there.
Well, when you're talking the DCJS part, we're all required now to take that additional training.
Right.
Whether it's Second Amendment or whether it's the stuff for Black Lives Matter or social issues. It's the last one I took was about 4 hours long, and
right.
That's training that you have to take for cultural diversity.
Right.
And not to get off on a tangent, but this is a profession where we would like to have different people of color. But, anymore, it's hard to get anybody to apply for a job as a police officer when you pay them or you start their salary at what it is. And, you can go work on a computer all day long and make twice as much money as a police officer does.
Right.
So, it's the training that we expect from our people and the quality of people that we get. But a lot of people who are excellent candidates are going, I'm going to make under $45,000 to put on a bulletproof vest and have to carry a gun every day. I don't know if I'm going to do that. So then you throw everything else in there and all the training, and they sit there and they know that they're under a microscope every day. It makes it difficult. But these are things that we have to do. We have to support the Constitution and the Second Amendments in that Constitution, and it's also in the Virginia Constitution.
Right.
So, it's a battle, and as a sheriff, or I always tell people that the sheriff is the neutral party between the government and the people, and we have to float on that thin line. But at the end of the day, we have to uphold the Constitution. So back when they were talking about the Second Amendment, are you going to be driving around in a sheriff's pickup truck picking up everybody's guns? Lord, no, we're not going to do that. Everybody should, if you're legally allowed to have a handgun, you should be able to have a handgun. And that's, been my thinking since day one. But it's in the Constitution that you have the right to bear arms. So.
Right. Well, Sheriff, listen, I appreciate you spending your time, a few minutes with me this morning. And Lenny, you've been a real help to me in my career. You've been very supportive of me personally. And I know that Frederick County has got a great relationship with Shenandoah County Sheriff's Office, Frederick County Sheriff's Office, and there's no doubt that you do a great job there, and the people in Frederick County are well served by their sheriff and by the Frederick County Sheriff's Office. And I do appreciate your time this morning. Is there anything you wanted to add before we leave today?
Sheriff, about the only thing, like you said, we do have a wonderful working relationship, and you were the president of the Sheriff's Association, and at the end of the day, if anybody wonders, what's in our policy, you can go online to the Frederick County Sheriff's Office and look, at our use of force policy or anything like that. And we're an open book. If you have a question, if you feel you've been victimized or anything like that, don't ever hesitate to call law enforcement, because that's what we're there for. We're here to help. So with that, Sheriff, thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks so much. And again, everyone out there, if you please follow me on Facebook at Timothy C. Carter. I also have Twitter and Instagram, and we'll be posting the link to this podcast. Thanks so much.
Thank you.